They say history is written by the living. But what if one's story never stopped writing itself? April 14th, 1865. The air in Ford's Theatre is thick with laughter and excitement, buzzing with anticipation. President Abraham Lincoln, finally free from the crushing weight of a 4-year war, allows himself a moment of peace. He leans back in his chair, a rare smile lighting up his face. It's like he just heard the best joke ever. In just 10 seconds, everything flips upside down. A gunshot rings out, followed by a scream. A man collapses, and in that heavy silence, something new starts brewing. You see, Abraham Lincoln didn't just die that night. Something stayed behind. Something this country still hasn't buried. Because what came after his death was darker, stranger, and far more powerful than anyone could have ever imagined. The newspapers labeled it a national tragedy, while the world saw it as the end of an era. But for some folks, it was just the start of something new. Exciting, right? As Lincoln took his last, ragged breath in that tiny boarding house right across the street, people swore they felt the air in the room change. It was like a moment frozen in time. They said it felt heavy, watched, as if the man wasn't quite gone. The doctor who pronounced him dead later wrote that he had never seen a face so filled with unspeakable peace upon death. But was it peace? Or was it something else? A quiet resolve, an understanding that his work wasn't over. In the weeks and months that followed, strange stories began to bubble up. People were convinced they saw him everywhere. A tall, familiar shadow in a long black coat, popping up in mirrors, lurking down dark hallways, and even haunting their dreams. Crazy, right? He never said a word. He didn't even move a muscle. He just sat there, watching. Was it a huge wave of grief, like a whole nation dreaming of its lost leader? Or was something else at play? This story could have ended there, a sad footnote in a nation's mourning. But it didn't. Because the ghost, or whatever it was, followed the country back to its very heart, the White House. For decades, the stories were just whispers among the staff. The late-night guards, the maids, the butlers. They spoke of strange happenings in the Lincoln bedroom. Footsteps on the floorboards when no one was there. A door creaking open on its own. And a sudden, bone-deep chill that would sweep through the room, even on the warmest summer nights. One young guard, new to his post, claimed he saw him, a towering figure standing by the window, staring out towards the Washington Monument, his shoulders slumped as if carrying a great weight. The guard froze, unable to move or speak. Just as he raised his radio to call for backup, the figure dissolved into the moonlight. He never worked the night shift again. These weren't just stories from frightened guards. They came from the most powerful people in the world. President Theodore Roosevelt, a man who feared nothing, admitted he felt a distinct presence in the Lincoln bedroom, a feeling of being watched by a sad, but not unkind, spirit. President Eisenhower, the stoic 5-star general, confessed to his staff that he actively avoided the Lincoln bedroom at night, finding its atmosphere too heavy. But perhaps the most famous encounter came from an unlikely source, Winston Churchill. During a visit to the White House in World War II, Churchill was staying in the Lincoln bedroom. One evening, having just emerged from a hot bath, cigar in hand, he walked into the bedroom. And there, standing by the fireplace, was the unmistakable figure of Abraham Lincoln. Churchill, a man who faced down the Nazi war machine, was famously unflappable. He simply took the cigar from his mouth, looked at the apparition, and said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage." The figure smiled faintly, and then faded away. Churchill told President Roosevelt about it the next morning, not as a man who had seen a ghost, but as a man who had met a fellow leader, sharing a quiet moment across the boundaries of time. So what's going on here? Is the White House really haunted by the ghost of its most famous resident? It's a fantastic story. But what if it's not about ghosts? What if the haunting is real, but it's not supernatural? Maybe Abraham Lincoln didn't just haunt the White House. He might still be around. Maybe he haunts the entire nation. Because his dream, the dream he gave his life for, didn't die with him. It lived on. Lincoln wasn't just about keeping the Union together. He was all in for freedom, too. He was fighting for an idea, as he put it, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. That idea, that dream of a truly united, truly equal America, was his unfinished business. Think about it. That dream lived in every abolitionist who continued the fight against oppression after his death. It lived in every activist who marched on Washington for civil rights, standing on the very steps of the Lincoln Memorial, invoking his words. It lives in every teacher who tells their students about the promise of America, every worker who demands fair treatment, every ordinary citizen who looks at the deep divisions in our country and still believes we can be better. Maybe the haunting isn't just spooky. It could be something deeper, you know? Maybe the footsteps guards here aren't ghosts, but the echo of an idea that refuses to die. The cold chill isn't a specter, but the sobering realization of how far we still have to go. Because Lincoln's unfinished dream, it's still walking among us. It's in our politics, our classrooms, our arguments at the dinner table. When Lincoln warned, "A house divided against itself cannot stand," he wasn't just talking about the 1860s. He was giving us a timeless warning. He was talking about right now. Because the dream he died for, the dream of unity, of equality, of malice toward none and charity for all, is still bleeding. We see it every day. The political polarization, the social injustice, the anger that threatens to tear us apart all over again. Maybe that's why people still feel his presence. Not as a ghost in the spooky sense, but as a reminder, a nagging feeling in the back of our collective mind. A voice whispering through the halls of history, through the pages of our textbooks, through the very soul of the nation, the work is not finished. That feeling of being watched, maybe it's the weight of his legacy, looking down on us, asking if we've honored his sacrifice. So, no, Abraham Lincoln didn't just die in Ford's Theater. He became something else. He became a spirit bound to the nation he fought to save. Every time America falls apart and rebuilds, he's there, in the speeches of our leaders, in the chants of protesters, in the quiet moments of hope when we choose understanding over anger. He didn't just live for America. He became its conscience. And maybe that's the real story, the one that's stranger and more powerful than any ghost tale. Lincoln never left. He's still here, watching, waiting, hoping that we, the living, can finally become the amazing country he always dreamed of. He isn't a ghost to be feared. He is a challenge to be met. So the next time you hear about divisions in this country, the next time you feel hopeless about the future, remember the tall man in the long black coat. He didn't just die. He became the ghost of America's conscience. And until his dream is fulfilled, he won't rest. Maybe we shouldn't stop here. There's still so much more to do. Thank you so much for watching. If this story made you think, please hit that like button, share it with someone who loves history, and subscribe for more stories that dig deeper. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is Lincoln's ghost real, or is it the spirit of his unfinished dream? I'm really curious to know what you think about all this. Share your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious and dream big.